Welcome. Today, we're here to talk about a project that could have significant impact on our community, the proposed reopening of the Idaho, Maryland mine. Mine Watch is a volunteer-driven community coalition sponsored by the Community Environmental Advocates Foundation. We're studying this project and working in concert with homeowners, businesses, and several nonprofits like Sierra Club, Wolf Creek Community Alliance, San Juan Ridge Taxpayers Association, and the South Yuba River Citizens League, among others. Our goal is to provide fact-based information to the community so we can all make informed decisions. And we're always open to fact checks. What's at stake for our county? Well, a lot, actually. A company named Rise Gold wants to reopen a gold mine that's been closed for nearly 70 years, reintroducing a heavily industrial, highly toxic business into what is now an idyllic rural residential community. It begs the question, who gets rich and at what cost to the community? First, let me give you a sense of the project. Rise Gold is proposing mining 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for as much as 80 years. Our Nevada County supervisors will be the decision makers on the project, and we're projecting a decision as early as 2022. The first big step in the process is the development of an environmental impact report, and we're expecting to be able to review and comment on that soon. This map of the mineral rights will give you a good sense of the directly impacted area. There are two above-ground sites shown in the middle of this map in light gray, the Centennial site near downtown Grass Valley off of Idaho-Maryland Road, and the larger Brunswick site at the intersection of East Bennett and Brunswick Roads. In addition to that, the darker gray section shows the underground mineral rights owned by Rise Gold. It covers more than 2,500 acres, extending under the hospital and senior care facilities at the top, underneath the Nevada County Airport on the right, and all the way up to the Cedar Ridge area toward the bottom. Basically, Rise owns everything that starts 200 feet below the surface, making it quite a large area of potential risk. And unlike the early 1900s, when the mine was located well outside of town, today there are 900 parcels immediately on top of the mineral rights area, and then another 900 just within 1,000 feet of that boundary, for a total of 1,800 properties in the impact zone. There are also 300 plus private wells over or near the mineral rights area. Now, before I'm moving to the next slide, I'd like to call out one more thing. The Centennial site is a historically toxic site that was facing EPA Superfund designation until Rise Gold agreed to clean it up. Unfortunately, their plans don't stop with the cleanup. Their intent is to use the site to dump new mine waste, effectively using the site to create piles of engineered rock fill, up to 7 stories tall. At issue here is the critical question of trust. Because gold mining is by its very nature an extremely hazardous business, there are a lot of questions. And we are a community that has a landscape filled with legacy toxic waste. There's a critical question about whether our county or state can provide the extensive and proactive compliance oversight needed. The 2014 grand jury actually found that the county and state had failed to protect our community from the toxic impacts of gold mining. So we have to ask, are we more prepared today than we were then? Beyond that, the mining industry itself has a long history of doing damage to communities, going bankrupt and leaving behind inadequate bonds to cover the costs of cleanup. This was, in fact, the case with Rise Gold CEO Ben Mossman's previous company. So let's get into it. If this project is approved, the impact on Western Nevada County would be significant. And there are 3 areas of key concern. I'll speak to health, quality of life, and economic damage. Let's take a closer look. Health is the first thing, and it's a big one because unfortunately, Nevada County also already struggles with more than its fair share of health challenges. We rank well below the California average in air quality, lung and heart disease, and depression and suicide. Gold mining operations bring up several areas of concern. Air quality will be impacted by fumes and fugitive dust from blasting, crushing, transporting, spreading, compacting of mine waste. Water quality and quantity will be put at risk because of the massive dewatering of underground tunnels. Mine waste, rocks removed from the mine contain hazardous elements like asbestos and microscopic crystalline silica. And residents near the mine working will hear the industrial operation noise and vibrations from drilling and blasting, impacting their quality of life and potentially inducing stress that can contribute to psychosocial conditions. Let's take a closer look at air. Diesel exhaust from continuous truck trips. Mine exhaust with escaped fumes from blasting and processing, including the use of ammonium nitrate. Fugitive dust from rock crushing, loading, and unloading as they create mountains of engineered fill. The fact of the matter is that our community is already in a seriously compromised position. The 2020 State of the Air report from the American Lung Association gave Nevada County an F for our air quality, and that counted for both high ozone days and particle pollution. And our lung disease rate is twice the average of counties in California. Now, Rise Gold believes that through modern day mining processes, they'll be able to mitigate all of these concerns so that health risk posed by the mine will be, quote unquote, less than significant. But we believe there really is a risk that will be significant. In the end, the determination of health risks will be made by an independent consultant who's preparing the draft environmental impact report, and that isn't done yet. But the bottom line here is that we already have unhealthy levels, and adding anything more will just make it worse. We know there will be impacts to our water supply, which is a serious concern given the mega drought we're currently facing. Rise proposes to dewater the abandoned tunnels, which means putting 3.6 million gallons a day of treated wastewater into South Fork Wolf Creek for 6 months. After that, they would continue to remove 1.2 million gallons of water a day every day for the next 80 years. There are several questions. How will it impact creeks? Rise Gold is proposing to build a complex system for treating and releasing water into a fork of one of our local area's most treasured creeks, claiming that flows will be controlled and water quality will be released to drinking water standards. But the devil's in the details. They're actually talking about secondary drinking water standards, which means elements in the water could cause pipes to rust and emit a distinct musty odor. There are questions being asked about aquifer damage too, and how that might impact an area already ravaged by drought. Now, Rise is claiming their operations will only reduce water levels by 1 to 10 feet, which is within the normal range of normal yearly variation. But it's not clear that historical averages are a good predictor in our current drought situation. Another question, a study by Stanford University and the Nature Conservancy suggests that aquifer damage in higher elevation fractured rock formations can affect water basins at lower altitudes. And we also have recent evidence in our own community with the San Juan Ridge mine failure that emptied wells and created a cone of depression 300 feet deep. Perhaps the largest area of concern is wells. There are more than 300 private wells over or near the mineral rights area. Residents are deeply concerned that if these wells fail, run dry, or become contaminated, they'll have to find another way to get their water. While Rise has promised to offer NID water to 26 homes on Bennett Road, the fate of the remaining wells is uncertain. Groundwater experts tell us that hydrogeology of this area is extremely complicated and the impacts are truly unpredictable. With an 80-year lease that gives them mineral rights up to 200 feet below people's homes, this puts well owners at risk of costly and lengthy replacement efforts if the worst happens. So some of you may remember the San Juan mine that had to shut down in the mid-1990s after the mine drained residents' wells. That was over 15 years ago, and the impacts of that failure are still felt amongst residents. Wells were permanently damaged. We need to ask ourselves, are we willing to risk our homeowners' wells? And given the scope of how many homes could potentially be impacted, does Rise Gold have the capacity to make things right if bad things happen? And if those bad things happen, will the county guarantee a speedy resolution so that homes don't go without water for months or even years? Without question, the people who will be the hardest hit by this project are the residents and businesses in the Brunswick area, significantly impacting quality of life. We're talking about putting a 122,000 square foot heavily industrial processing plant right into the middle of an idyllic rural residential community. Rise Gold is fond of talking about all the measures they're taking to contain sound levels inside the plant, but there's a lot more outside they're not talking about. And this is still going to be an industrial mining operation. There will be new truck traffic with public documents telling us up to 100 round trips a day, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Habitat destruction as natural settings get buried beneath mountains of mine waste and the paved industrial area. And plenty of noise with constant construction noise for the first 2 to 3 years, then grading and rock compacting to create engineered fill 7 days a week for 11 years. It's not hard to imagine the sound of backup beeps ringing in your ears, is it? There's another key concern too. Rise Gold wants to assure us that noise and vibration from drilling and blasting won't be an issue for homeowners or businesses, claiming that the impact won't be quote unquote significant. And yet, noise and vibration have already been a problem for local residents when Rise was doing initial explorations. Several reports and complaints have been made, including one from a homeowner near the Brunswick site who was woken out of sound sleep many times. One of our county supervisors even visited a home to investigate a complaint and agreed that the level was unacceptable. But shockingly, that level of noise was then found to be within quote unquote acceptable limits by the letter of the law. So there's really no question in anyone's mind here, the peace and quiet that brought homeowners and businesses to this beautiful area will be shattered. Another concern is power consumption. The plan in energy consumption alone is a real eye-opener, begging the question about whether it will impact a power grid that's already under strain during heat waves and at further risk with the megadrought impacting hydroelectric power output. The electric usage is estimated to be 42 billion watt hours per year, gigawatts, which is about 12% of what the whole of Nevada County uses in a year. The plan calls for significant use of fossil fuels. It's also estimated that their ongoing level of energy consumption would be roughly equivalent to adding 5,000 new homes. This is completely opposite of where Nevada County has decided to go. The Nevada County Energy Action Plan calls for a significant reduction of residential electric use. Believe it or not, that plan calls for a reduction of 42 gigawatt hours annually by 2035, the exact same yearly usage as the mine. In other words, the mine would completely erase our planned gains to offset climate change. Rise Gold's big attraction, of course, is jobs. But interestingly, it really isn't that many. Of the 312 jobs projected for the mine, it's still not exactly clear how many will be filled with local residents or whether their staffing plans will change after they're up and running. Yes, there will be some short-term construction income if materials and labors are secured locally, and local spending and taxes from the mine and its employees. But you might be surprised to learn that our county won't actually get any revenue from the gold mining profits. Only state and federal governments will benefit from corporate taxes on the profits. So what does that leave us with? A toxic, heavily industrial business right in the middle of what's now a long-established community and significant risks for surrounding homeowners and businesses. We already talked about the risks facing 300 or more well owners in the area, and both costs and delays could be substantial if those wells fail. Homeowners are another huge area of concern. Despite the recent real estate bubble that drove local prices up, real estate agents tell us that home prices surrounding the mine will drop, with estimates ranging easily up to 20%. Even a conservative estimate multiplied by the number of homes affected puts the loss at potentially tens of millions of dollars. And of course, if home prices drop, so do property values, translating into less revenue for the county. We also need to ask ourselves about possible impacts to existing businesses and tourism too. Local high-tech microcircuit businesses may not be able to operate in the area because of vibration from blasting, and attracting good employees to the area may be more difficult. Families, business owners, retirees, and tourists love Nevada County because of its scenic beauty, iconic rivers, quaint downtown areas, world-class recreational opportunities, and its laid-back feeling. How will that change if we add more spare the air days or an unsightly processing plant and have two massive engineered fill grading and compacting operations running continuously on the end of town? These are key questions I think we all have to ask and answer. You might be wondering what you can do to help with this effort. Here's a quick list of things you can do. The best resources for learning about the project are the MindWatch website and the county website. If you're inspired to take action, the MindWatch website gives you everything you need to sign the petition, learn how to make comments at supervisor meetings, get a lawn sign, or follow us with email and social media. And because MindWatch is a completely volunteer-driven effort, we genuinely appreciate donations to help us pay for the costs involved with research, community outreach, and legal experts. To learn more, you can go to the website, www.mindwatchnc.org. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate your time. Please get involved. Tell us what you think.